Hey, in today's video, I want to talk to you about water management around our homestead. Good morning. It is a beautiful, very bright sunny day here on our homestead. If you're new to our channel, Doug and I live off-grid in the southeast Arizona, Cochise County area of the state, and we've just moved on to our homestead property. We have just under 40 acres, and we're working on getting it developed. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit more in depth about how we manage water on our homestead. So you get to join me and Willow and Zoey for our morning walk. We do this twice a day, and you'll notice both the dogs are on leashes, and that is because the snake training that we did a few months back with them did not work, or at least it didn't work as well as we were hoping it would. We've had a couple incidents where they got very close to a snake and didn't alert to it at all. So more on that in another video, because the guy that did our snake training was pretty awesome and said if we have any issues at all to go ahead and give him a call back, and we could bring the dogs back in and keep training them until they get it. And they obviously haven't gotten it yet. So we keep them on leashes. Zoey tends to wander. That's the little chihuahua right there. And Willow actually is really good about listening, but when she gets fixated on chasing a bird or a rabbit, you can't get her to pay attention very well. So until we get them better snake trained, we're keeping them on leashes. We're walking up the hill to where Doug is doing work. I just want to quickly show you what he's been up to before I go into my discussion about water. He's doing water management on the property. We want to get this done before the monsoons. And actually, our last video, you can see a little bit more in depth what he's doing, but I'm just going to take you up to where he's working and show you before I get started. Hopefully you can hear me over the tractor, but we're just walking up the driveway. We've got this little wash that crosses the driveway. It starts over there, comes down, crosses our property line, and then it goes down and runs parallel to the road. And the driveway tends to get water over it during the monsoon season, so Doug is doing some work. Willow's excited to see him always, and so is Zoey. But Doug's been doing some work to mitigate the water flow. So instead of this wash coming down and wiping out the driveway, he's been doing work to make it, it's still going to flow over the driveway, but he's slowing the water down and he's making it flow more of a slower flow and a more shallow flow. So it'll kind of sheet flow over the driveway instead of coming crashing down here and wiping the driveway out. So I'm going to zoom in to a little closer to what he's doing, but I'm going to turn the volume off because he's got the tractor running. All right, so that's a little bit about what Doug's doing and working on, and we're going to walk back down now to where we've got our kind of homestead camp set up down there, and I'm going to kind of just show you a little bit more about how we manage water, because we don't have city water out here and we don't have a well, and I want to talk to you about that. All right, so we're back down on the homestead site, which is our temporary living situation. We're staying in our 21-foot RV while we build our homestead. So we don't anticipate being in the RV for a super long time, but while we're down here and developing everything, we do have to have water. So some of you already know that we struggled with trying to find a company that would come in and deliver water to us because of our location. We're pretty remote. There's some big washes that go through our neighborhood that make it sometimes difficult for large, heavy trucks to get through. So as soon as the monsoons were done, our neighborhood went ahead and fixed the roads, and they were fixed good enough that we could get a water delivery service in. So we got both of these 1,550 gallon each tanks filled up. It was reasonable. We actually got a guy to come out who is awesome, and we would highly recommend. He's based out of Benson, and it is called, the water delivery service is called Rockin' You Water Delivery, and he was very reasonable, especially considering how far out he had to drive. So he made it through the wash fine, got our cisterns filled up, and actually also filled up our IBC tote, which is right down there. You can see it's got a black cover on it. So we're good on that. And then we shared with you guys also that we had bought our cisterns. These two guys, they're Enduraplast brand, and we had bought them from Southwest Irrigation up in Wilcox. And they have been great to work with, and so great that we actually went ahead and ordered 4 more of this same size. This is something they carry in stock. So we got 4 more of those guys delivered, and they are actually up the hill where our animal shelters and where our house is going to be, because eventually we'll need water up there as well. And the reason why we went ahead and bought 4 more of these cisterns was because we made our decision, and we at this time are not going to be drilling for a well. So a lot of thought and a lot of investigation went into making that decision. Water is of course a huge issue out here in the desert, and we do live near where they're doing a lot of large farm type operations, not super close to us, but close enough to where it could be impacting the groundwater. So we had been told, we've got a neighbor that had dug a well and he hit water at around 60 feet down. We have another neighbor that drilled until they hit 1,000 feet and they did not hit water. So with the cost of drilling, we just could not take the risk of spending $25,000 plus and not hitting water. We've decided to go ahead and invest some of that money instead into cisterns, because our ultimate goal is to rainwater harvest, and we don't want to be tied to a well. We can't be tied to city water because we don't live in an area where city water is available. So we've decided to go ahead and invest that time and money into rainwater harvesting. So now we've got this 4 more cisterns that we've got for holding water. So we've got close to about 10,000 gallons right now of storage. Now, some of you might be wondering, how much water should you be storing? And that's a really good question. It really depends on you and what you're using the water for. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we're using water, how much average water we're using now that we've been here for 2 months. We have a much better idea of what we're going to need. I've got Doug down here now, and he's going to help me record while I talk to you about this a little bit more. So back to our usage. So I was explaining we've got 3 different types of water that we use, which is 1, the trailer water that gets filled from these cisterns, 2 is our laundry, and 3 is the yard and the plants that we've got growing out here. So I want to talk to you about how we figured out how much water we're using in the trailer, because like I just mentioned, the trailer has a capacity of fresh water of 31 gallons, which it doesn't sound like that much. But one thing I want you to think about, and this is really important, and this is actually kind of a big key for us being out here in Cochise County, Arizona. Cochise County allows composting toilets. Now, I'm going to be honest. When I first started looking into that, I thought it was absolutely disgusting, and I started digging in and researching, and the more I learned about it, the more it made a whole lot of sense. So we have a composting toilet in our trailer. We actually swapped out the toilet that came with the trailer for a composting one, because composting toilets do not use any water at all. And I'm going to get a little kind of detailed here, but composting toilets separate out the liquids from the solids. So when you have that situation, that horrible sewer smell that you get from your RV black water tank, you do not get that with a composting toilet. It does not have a smell. If anything, it kind of smells like dirt. And the way we use our composting toilet is our medium that we use in the solid portion of that tank is called coconut core. And that's like shredded coconut, not the inside of the coconut, but like the bark of a coconut. And it works really well. It's easy to get on Amazon, and we've had a great success with our composting toilet. So because that is not a factor, we don't have those gallons and gallons of water being flushed in that toilet. That's a huge piece of why our water consumption is so low and how we use our water. So I did a laundry video, and you can kind of see a little bit more in depth about what we do with our gray water. But here in Cochise County, they also encourage gray water recycling into your landscape. So it is not against the law to take your water that you use and recycle it. So we use recycled water every time we can. I use recycled water from the laundry, and we also recycle water from our trailer. So now that we've been here for 2 solid months, we can see our water consumption is approximately 362 gallons over a 2-month period. So doing a little bit of math, that equals out to be, we're using in the trailer approximately 6 gallons a day. And that's between 2 adults, and that's between Doug and I. So on average, we're each using about 3 gallons of water a day. And like I mentioned earlier, that includes the sink water for washing hands, the shower water, because we do shower in our RV. It includes drinking water, it includes cooking water, and it includes water that we use to do our dishes. So I'm very frugal with water, and Doug is too, so we're very cautious. You might wonder how on earth we're showering with that little bit of water, but we take military style showers, and if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's just what we have to do right now, and we just have to sacrifice a tiny bit. So anyway, so our consumption based on that is pretty good. So we're filling the water tank up here in the trailer about every 5 days. So I want to show you how we do that. But before we do that, I want to tell you a little bit about the cost of how much water we're using right now and what that is versus what it was when we were living back in the city in the Denver metro area. So our water delivered costs us about 8 cents a gallon. Okay, so when you do the math on all of that, it comes out to something like around $15 a month for water that we're using in the trailer. Okay, that's not bad, because considering when we lived in the city, our water bill was pretty close to $100 a month. Now that did include water and sewer, but still that's a huge drop in how much we're using, not only how much we're using, but also how much we're spending. So let me take you now though and show you how we get the water from the cisterns into the trailer and how we get the water from the cisterns into my laundry area, my off-grid outdoor laundry area, because it's not as easy as just turning on a hose. There's a little bit more to it than that. And our tanks are not elevated, so we don't have that great water pressure that you get from an elevated tank. So we have to take a little step further and pump our water, and I'm going to show you how we do that now. Videoing? Okay. All right, so this hose right here actually goes straight over to our cisterns, and we have a very simple little on-off nozzle that, or little toggle that we turn it on and off. So this pump that we use is a Drummond brand, and we bought this at Harbor Freight. It was about $110 before tax. And what this is a 1/2 horsepower non-submersible transfer pump. So we use this pump. It's really easy to use, but you know, we're off grid, so we don't have power. So we keep it right here by our generator. And let me show you how I hook everything up and how we get water into the trailer. So I'm going to go ahead and start by hooking up this hose. It just screws in one side. You screw it until it's tight. Whoops. All right, so we've got that side. Now the other side that's coming out of this pump is going to be the hose that I use to fill up the trailer. Okay, so this is the output side. And just screw that on until it's tight. Okay, now this pump requires you to prime it. So what that means is I just need to put water in it so that there's no air in the system and we don't have any problems with the pump. So that comes off. I just keep this bottle. It's our pump primer water bottle, and I keep it under the trailer. So you just pour that in. Usually takes just about a bottle. And you'll see it starts to get close to the top. And that's good. All right, so screw that back on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go turn the water on, and then we'll get the generator. Thanks. We'll get the generator started, and then I'll show you how I do that. All right, so the water is turned on, and we can go ahead and start the generator and then plug this thing in. This thing doesn't have an on-off switch. It just turns on when you plug it in. So let me go ahead and do that. Generator is really easy to run, actually. You just turn the gas on, switch it to on, pull the primer, I think that's what that's called. Anyway, and then we start it up. Okay, so that's full. Okay, let me go shut the water off. So this was the hose I was using to fill the trailer up. I turned the water off. You might be wondering what this is on the end. This is actually an RV water filter, and we use these when we were traveling to filter the water for, when we're staying somewhere that had water connections, and make sure that that water's filtered. We do the same thing. The water we get delivered is potable, and it's fine to drink. It's well water, actually, but we chose to keep our water filter on here and just filter it and make sure it's good. And then we also have a Brita water pitcher that we keep in the trailer. We keep it in the fridge and keep the water cold. So I just want to mention one more thing, because we are getting down to freezing temps here some nights. Not every night, but some nights. So after you're done using this, you always want to drain it out, and it's pretty easy to do. So just unhook the one side, unhook the other side, and then there's still water in here. So you don't want to have a freeze and have this thing freeze up. It could crack it, even though it is cast iron, so it might be hard, but you don't want to take a chance on that. So you just dump one side out, okay, and then flip it over, make sure all the water's out, okay? So earlier I told you I had two hoses that I use on the output for this pump. One of them is this one, which I use to fill the trailer up. The other one is this one, the one with the blue line. This is actually a 75-foot hose that I bought. And the reason I bought it was because this hose didn't reach all the way around the back where I have my laundry system set up. So I bought a 75-foot hose that I just keep. I run it around the back of the trailer, and I use this when I'm needing to hook it up to the output for laundry. So that's that. So welcome to my off-grid laundry setup. I actually did a whole video about this, but that hose that I showed you up front that I use and I run back here, it actually just goes right here, and I have it attached to the table with a bungee, and then I can just fill it up right here. This is my wash water, that's my rinse water, and life is so much easier. Because I couldn't reach that hose around here, I was hauling water in this little bucket, and it just takes a while, so it's a lot easier just to have the water back here. One thing I want to mention, like I said earlier, I have a separate video on this whole laundry setup that's a lot more detailed. Somebody had asked me if I heat the water, and I don't. I'm fine with cold water unless I'm doing like socks and undies or whites. So if I'm doing socks and undies or whites, I do have a big pot in the trailer that I heat up with water, and I use that just to give it a little extra sterilization, I guess. So anyhow, that's how we're using water. It's working really well for us. I wanted to get back to one thing though about rainwater collection, because we had a lot of people saying, oh, there's no way you can collect rainwater out there. It doesn't rain enough, and it's Arizona and it's dry and water's such a big issue. Well, we know people that live out here that have not just 2 people living off rainwater, but whole families that are living off rainwater. The key is having enough collection and enough storage. So now that we have 6 of those 1,550 gallon storage tanks, we have what we think right now anyway is to be plenty of storage, at least until we get animals and livestock on the farm. Once we add animals in, then we're probably going to need more storage. But just to give you an idea, if you have a 1,000 square foot roof and it rains 1 inch, you're going to get 600 gallons of water from that rain. So on average here in Cochise County, where we live, the average, I believe, is 14 inches a year. So we're planning on having at least 3,000 square feet of collection. All right, so I had to use the calculator. So we're planning on having 3,000 square feet of roof to collect water on, and at 600 gallons per inch of 1,000 square feet, if we average out that we're getting 14 inches of rain here a year, that's approximately 25,000 gallons a year. So that's plenty of water, we believe. We may need more, and we can always add additional collection on or add additional storage on, but that's a whole lot of water. And if you consider that this year our neighbors have recorded that they've gotten almost 40 inches of rain, then that's plenty of rain. So there may be years though we know that we need to supplement, and we have a water delivery person now that will help take care of us in those dry times. But for the most part, I think we are going to be just fine with that. And we did talk about we may do a well eventually. That's not off the table. It's just something that we're holding off of for now because we really want to see how we can do living off of rainwater collection. So anyhow, that's it on water. If you have questions, please put them in the comments below. We love answering your questions, and we love getting your input because some of you have been doing this for a while. Some of you are just considering doing this, or you're just getting started. So if you're in that position, please follow along with us and hit the subscribe button so you can follow our journey and learn from us. Bye.